I'm Jennifer Reynolds. I'm part of the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion team at MLSE. So that's Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment here in Toronto. And we own the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Toronto Raptors, Toronto FC, Toronto Argonauts, as well. We have a large live entertainment business and own and operate a few restaurants as well in downtown. So I've been involved with the EDI department for the past 6 months. We're a new department within the organization, and I've been at MLSE for 2.5 years prior to that. My background in sport, I'm an athlete, so I was part of the Queen's Triathlon team back in university, and I've been actively involved in the community space with the You Can Play project, which is a nonprofit organization that works for LGBTQ inclusion in sports. So I've been volunteering with them for the past 5 years as the lead of their Canadian advisory board. I think education plays a huge part in this. In speaking with a lot of people, we acknowledge that there is a gap in people's knowledge around inclusion, and recognizing that everyone is on different parts within their own learning journey. So really, education is the real starting point in this. So we need to make sure that people, organizations, corporations are investing in education so that everyone can know what does it mean to be diverse? What does it mean to be inclusive? What does equity mean? And how is that different than equality? So really investing in education is the starting point here. And then media plays such an important role in shaping our culture. Shaping what people perceive as sports, who they see on their TV, what stories are being told. So if we can have the media help to create that new normal by telling stories of racialized people, of LGBTQ people, of people of all different backgrounds, that will help to normalize that being part of the sports landscape. So again, media plays a big role in this, and it's an opportunity for them to step forward and tell those stories that in the past haven't been told before. Some people are often surprised to hear that major league sports teams actually work a lot together behind the scenes. We're fierce competitors on the court, on the ice, but we actually do a lot of collaboration through the league. So with our Toronto Raptors and Toronto Maple Leafs, we're very involved in working groups through the NBA and the NHL leagues, where we're able to meet with other teams and share best practices when it comes to equity, diversity, and inclusion. Some teams have been doing different parts in the inclusion space for longer than we have, and we're leading in some other places as well. So by being able to come together with other teams, we're working to change the broader sport landscape. Just because, the Toronto Raptors, for example, are leading in terms of education around inclusion, it doesn't mean that the problem is solved across basketball. It doesn't mean the problem is solved across the NBA. So when we're looking to change the sport landscape and sport culture, we're not going to win unless all teams are elevated to the same level that we are. So as leaders in some space, we acknowledge our responsibility to help other teams within our leagues and teams throughout different levels of sport, not just at the professional level, to help them in their journey as well. And then for organizations, for MLSE as a corporate entity as well, we are working with other organizations in Toronto who are experts on inclusion. So knowing that there are other organizations that are looking to make similar changes in their corporate space like we are, being able to speak with them and all work together. And that's the only way that we're going to be able to get the change that we want to have in the longer term, is by being able to work together that way. The most difficult part in creating diversity and fostering a sense of inclusion in the sports industry is that the sports industry is stereotypically and historically dominated by straight, white, cis, able-bodied men. And that is a very homogenous group. And so we're looking to change something that has been in place for many, many decades. And even though if MLSE has the intent as an organization to hire people of diverse backgrounds, focus on hiring racialized folks, women, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, our intent only goes so far if our community perceives the sports organization, and within that, MLSE, as a place that's not welcome to them. So we're working against people's perception that the sports industry might not be for them. So there, again, a lot of responsibility that goes into education and the accountability that the media has to help change that narrative. So with MLSE, like, we can have our intent to hire those diverse folks and be an inclusive organization, but we really need to invest in our community to help change that perception that the sports industry is only for one certain group. To that point, what do I see as the most amazing part of creating diversity? At MLSE, we are fortunate to have millions of fans. So not just the fans that have the opportunity to come see our games at Scotiabank Arena. We know that we have fans across Ontario, across Canada, across the world. So we have so much power to be able to create change, and our brands, our team brands, have so much power to be able to change that message. So I think the most amazing part about it is knowing that there's so much opportunity for us to impact the lives of people, impact the lives of our community, our fans, our employees as well. So there's huge opportunities there, and we're working to be able to capture those. A lot of companies over the past year, with the rise of the contemporary Black Lives Matter movement, have been called out by the general public in being performative, in tokenizing, by just hiring someone who is racialized, hiring a woman for a job, whatever it may be. So the responsibility is on those organizations to make sure that they have a long-term strategic plan, that their one action isn't just a one-off thing, that they're investing in in developing an equity, diversity, and inclusion department, that they're investing in external consultants that can help create this multi-year plan. So it's to be able to have that solid structure in place and that framework, to know that this is just not a one-off thing. This is not just a trend that a company might be following. So really it's up to the organizations and the teams to put in that work to make sure that these efforts are backed up in the long term. So the one word that I would say that captures the need when it comes to accountability and inclusion in sports would be openness. So openness, both in terms of people becoming more aware of where they are personally and where their organization is in their inclusion journey. So some self-reflection in that openness to realize the investment and work that needs to be done. Openness as an individual to acknowledge the unconscious biases that you have, to be open in acknowledging privilege that you have and how your privilege may have contributed to you getting to where you are today, but being open to acknowledging that privilege and trying to harness that privilege towards doing something for the greater good. And when we think about inclusion, openness just in terms of creating that inclusive environment. So not only do you get people in the door of your organization through diversity, that's the first step, but how do you keep them there? How do you keep them engaged? So creating that open culture where people are able to feel that they're their true authentic selves will help for inclusion and achieving equity across all groups going forward. So openness, and that can be interpreted in a few different ways. For accountability, I can talk about how this pertains to MLSE in particular. We released an open letter to our fans and our community and a statement on anti-racism and social justice in February. So this is posted on the MLSE website. And for accountability, we did this to outline the commitments that we are making to social justice, because we want to be held responsible to fulfilling these commitments, to being the leader in inclusion and equity in the sports industry that we so desire to be. So we have put out our commitments. We have let those be known to our fans, to the public, and we want people to hold us responsible to fulfilling those commitments, to doing better. So really accountability. Yes, we need to hold ourselves accountable, but we are looking to our broader community to hold us accountable in that regard as well. For diversity, I spoke about this a bit earlier, but our focus, diversity is just the first step. So we're looking to cast a wider net per se in terms of the folks that we're looking to hire at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. So we need to do our work to invest in those communities, create those authentic connections to help change the public's perception of the sports industry. So with our focus being on racialized folks, women, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, creating a wider net so we're able to reach the people that we want to reach. So diversity, great. If we can hire those people, that's just one step of many, but leading to inclusion, and this can also be tied back to, we're thinking about the fans in our arenas as well. Diversity, great. You look out at the crowd and there are so many different faces. We're blessed to be in Toronto where we have such an amazing diverse community, but how do you create an environment where your fans, no matter what their background, no matter what identity they have, they feel included? How do you create that environment in your office that those people feel that they belong, that they're given the same opportunities to accelerate their professional development? So not only are we focusing on getting diverse people in the door, whether that be into our office as employees or into our arenas as fans or become fans of our teams. For inclusion, we need to go so many steps further and invest so much more to make sure that those people feel that the sports industry, that our teams support them as individuals, and that's a place for them. As a sports organization, we acknowledge the important role that we play, acknowledging the power that we hold with our sports teams brands, and to be able to fulfill the responsibilities that we have. We owe it to our employees, we owe it to our fans, we owe it to our community to be that leader in inclusion and equity. This has to do with openness. We've released our open letter to our community. We've released our statement on anti-racism and social justice, but this is just the first step of many. We want our fans to be able to hold us to those commitments, and we acknowledge that we have a long way to go. Education, as I mentioned, we need to take it upon ourselves to educate ourselves as individuals, and work to acknowledge our biases and work towards being more empathetic to those who are from historically marginalized and racialized groups, so that we can create a more inclusive space that shows that everyone, no matter what your background is, that Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment and the sports industry is a place for you.